Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
Hello, everyone. This is Gabe Dunn. I wanted to preempt this episode with a little bit of an intro. I'm interviewing Riya Khan today, who I met through advocacy for her mother, Masuma Khan, who was in ICE detention in California City. Masuma is a brilliant genius, and her daughter Riya has been on the front lines fighting for justice for her mom. The stories here are truly horrifying, and at the end, there will be a call to action, so please stick around. I'm really grateful to have met Masuma. I'm really grateful to be going to the check-ins with her. I'm really grateful for my friend Jake, who connected all of us. I'm really grateful for Riya. It is such a strange way to start a friendship. If you know someone and you can go to check-ins with them for immigration, ask. I think you probably should go. Showing support always helps. I love you guys, and we're all in this together, and hopefully you feel like we're a community too. Okay, love you guys. Here's the episode.
Told a lot of lies about achievement. They called you when they got you to believe it. Thumb and finger held to their foreheads in an L shape. Trapped in a capitalist hellscape. Let's fight back and have some talks about class and the massive cost of the disasters. Plots of fascists and Nazis, fat cats and fox. It's 1,000 natural shocks. A Bad with Money podcast.
Hello and welcome to 1,000 Natural Shocks, a Bad with Money podcast. I'm your host, Gabe Dunn. And with me today, we have Riya Khan. Do you want to tell my audience who you are and what you do?
Hello, everyone. I'm Riya Khan. My mom is Masuma Khan, who some of you might be familiar with. She was detained last year in October. Me personally, I do a lot of advocacy, but aside from that, I have a law degree that I utilize in my jobs. I'm not like a barred attorney, but I do work in the legal field.
So what happened? Like, start at the beginning, I guess, for people who've never experienced this.
Yeah, so to understand that, I'm going to go back, I have to go way back, but I'll go through it very quickly. So in 1997, my family and I are from Bangladesh, and in 1997, in May, I was visiting the US with my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. I was visiting my uncles and aunts when I became very, very ill. And turned out that I had kidney failures. Both my kidneys had failed and I needed dialysis pretty quickly. And eventually I would need a transplant. So my mom needed to come here and, take care of me because no one else could do that or would do that because who wants to go through all that? But yeah, so my mom came in August, and during that time when she was getting her certification to do the home dialysis and just taking care of me, also working part-time with my uncles, her visa had expired and no one reminded her or took her to go get it extended. So that's what happened. And about a year later, she met a man at a Bangladeshi grocery store who was very, very friendly. And he, people like that really look at you and they know when you're vulnerable. So he approached her. He said, trying to get to know her. So she opened up to him. He seemed nice, and she told him our situation, and he said he could help because he helps a lot of people get their green cards. So she agreed, and it turned out that he created a false identity for her. He put the application in under a different name, said she was a Rohingya from Myanmar, and yeah, it was completely different. And because of her limitations in English at the time, he said that he was going to translate for her. And he took her to this interview. And when she was asked certain questions that she could answer, they didn't match up with what he had put on the application or what he was saying. Obviously, they were like, oh, denied. And then they let him know that she needed to go to court, but he was like, no, you don't need to go to court, just lie low. And then he kind of disappeared. So when she didn't show up to court, a deportation order, a removal order was put in under absentia because she didn't show up. And she was not aware of it. That was 1999. And she was not aware of it for a long time. We lived in the same address in Pasadena for 3 years. And then my mom, both my parents have lived in the same address in Altadena for like 23 years now. So, keep in mind that immigration, they know exactly where she is and they didn't do anything about it. They didn't try and like remove her. So fast forward, my father, who became a US citizen in I think 2011 or somewhere around there, through my grandmother, he petitioned for her. And when they went to that interview is when she found out that she had this removal order. So, but it was not a mandatory removal order. So she had been working with attorneys to get that figured out. And, since 2020, she was ordered to like go in to the office of supervision, where she would be checking in with ICE, letting them know, hey, I'm still here. I haven't fled anywhere. I don't know why she would, but
Mhm.
yeah. So it was like an annual thing, and she would check in, and they would be like, okay, come back on this day, and that's what she had been doing. So October 6th of 2025 was that date. And when she showed up, they took her into custody saying, you have this removal order. And she insisted, like, no, I'm checking in. I'm doing this on my own voluntarily. But they're like, no, we're going to take you into our custody, and, we're going to detain you. And then they took her, and they actually booked her under that other name at California City Detention Facility. And that's where she was for a little over 4 weeks. So, it was a battle, like on my part and my family's part. And, it was very, very straining on everybody, but mostly my mom, because you don't want to be in a place like that.
Was she by herself?
She was by herself, and, that's how she had been going. She had been going by herself for, 5.5 years, and her attorney reassured her because my mom was concerned, considering that so many people were getting taken. She was very concerned. She was very fearful. Her attorney reassured her, you're going to be fine. Your removal order is not mandatory. You have no criminal record. You're married to a US citizen. You have a pending case, and you're doing everything right. But, they don't follow any of that. They just do whatever they want. They just kidnap people.
Right. So she goes. She's obviously dressed and has the things necessary for an appointment. And when does she realize that they're taking her?
They made her wait 2 hours in that lobby after she checked in with them. And then one of the female officers came out and asked her to go into her office. And once she was in her office, she said, I'm going to take you into my custody. You have a removal order. So that's, yeah, about 2 hours in. And she had all her papers. And this officer took all of her, like, including her, like, Bangladeshi passport, which she always carried with herself, California ID, obviously, like, for identification reasons, and including like her social security card and just like everything. She just took it. So at this point, it's like she has no identity, but also all those documents are under her real name. They're booking her under this false name, which she has never identified with. She never claimed. They gave her the document, the form saying, like, we're notifying you of your removal order. That had the other name, but my mom insisted, like, that's not my name. Put my correct name. So this officer put both names.
And the other name was the scam.
Yes.
I'm just imagining that moment. I've met your mom and she's very sweet. Was she able to call you? Was she handcuffed? Like, what happened?
They would not allow her to call her attorney or her family. This officer insisted that she was very intimidating, according to what my mom said. And she said, no, you can't call them until you sign this document, which is this document notifying her of her removal order. And she said, I'm not signing anything without my attorney, but she was very like forceful. Yeah, she coerced her into signing this document because she said, I'm not going to let you call anybody. And once she did, that's when she allowed her to call I think they only gave her like a couple minutes, and my mom was able to call my dad, and her attorney asked my dad to go pick up the car and her things that they didn't take away. Yeah, after that she said they shackled her, handcuffed, and the handcuffs are like attached to a chain around the waist, and then the ankles are like shackled with like cuffs that have like jagged edges. So if you like move or try to, try to run or even like walk a little faster, like it cuts into your skin. And also like chained. That was also chained around.
So they take her out of the building like that?
Yeah, rest of that day, I this is downtown LA, so the rest of that day they kept her downstairs in their own facility, and then around 11 p.m. is when they transported her to California City, just like that. And she hadn't eaten anything. They gave her medications to my dad, and this officer reassured her that she would get her medications at the facility. And my mom said that the ride was very, very uncomfortable, that there were 3 other men being transported in the same van, but there was, like, a little division, like, to separate them, but there were, like, 4 of them in this van, and the air conditioner wasn't on, and the driver, probably purposely, was driving extra rough. And so, they said, "Put on your seatbelt," but she couldn't because, she's shackled. So she was just, like, sliding back and forth because of the way this guy was driving, and she was slamming into the doors and everything, and her ankles also cut because of the movement.
When did you find out what was happening?
I actually kind of feel really guilty because when my mom did call me, she did call me first when she was allowed to. I was taking a nap and I didn't answer. And then when I found out a couple hours later, I felt so bad. I found out from my cousin actually, because my cousin texted me, "Hey, have you talked to your parents today?" And I was like, "Oh no, what's going on?"
The you taking a nap thing is interesting because it adds to this stress idea where if you have immigrant parents, you're on alert. It's like you're a doctor. It's like you're on call.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I was already on high alert, but I was tired. I was already on high alert because just last year, all the raids started happening and it just got really, really scary. It was dangerous. It's still dangerous for immigrants, not just undocumented immigrants, just immigrants in general, people of color especially. It's dangerous for us to just be out and about now. And I carry my passport with me. Like, what is that? So yeah, and I'm always especially concerned about my mom because of her situation. And what's infuriating is that none of this is her fault. And the guy that scammed her, the government is fully aware of him. The FBI investigated him. He even served some time, and they let him out because he made a deal. And he was not deported. He's still out and about in LA. And this is just another example of them punishing the victims instead of the person that committed the crime.
If you could describe your mom for the listener, because seeing her in person really puts a lot of the story in bright colors to me.
Yeah, my mom, I mean, first of all, you can imagine what type of person she is to just leave all her and her entire life behind in another country and rush over here without really anything other than some clothes and like her passport to take care of her child, not knowing what was going to happen. And also, she was going to be my kidney donor because I had become very, very depressed from dialysis, and she got tested and she was my match. But we were waiting for summer vacation, and then they were able to find a deceased donor for me in the meantime, so she didn't end up being my donor. But think about the type of person she is to want to give a part of her body to her child. That's just who she is. She's very, very kind and very sweet. I would say naive, even based on a lot of these things. But everybody loves her. Everybody that meets her loves her in her community, her friends and our relatives. Everyone's always talking about her. Actually, when my mom was detained, my dad's cousin called and I happened to be in the car and it was on speaker. And he was saying, like, sometimes I don't even like your dad, who is my cousin, but I would always talk to her. I would always talk to her. And so, yeah, that's who she is. And, she's very, very compassionate as a person. And there's just no reason to not like her.
She's also, how old is she?
She's 64.
Yeah. And not a large woman.
No, she's pretty petite.
So it's hard for me to imagine anyone being rough or mean to this woman who is so sweet, so just not a danger to society in any way, no criminal record. And not to say that some people deserve, that it's unfortunate that we have to paint things a certain way so that people who lack compassion get it. But this is not the worst of the worst. This is not someone who needs to be in detention, who needs to be out of the country. It's wild that you said that the guy who did this to her was not deported and he served time for what he did to her, for what he did to other people too.
Right. And yeah, she's not a danger to anybody, no criminal history. And the thing is, like, I don't understand why she needed to be detained when they know where she lives. She is voluntarily going in saying, "Hey, I'm still around." And anytime she came and visited me or went out of the state, she would let them know. She would go into ICE's office and let them know, "Hey, I'm going to be gone for this many days. I'm going to this place." And it's not like she was gonna flee somewhere.
Mhm.
So what was the reason to hold her there? She's a petite woman, she's nice, and she even made a ton of friends when she was inside that facility. Yeah, like the guy that scammed her. In fact, I know that other people he had scammed were also deported.
Right. Your mom's in the car. Does she know if she's going to California City?
I don't think so. They just said they were going to transport her to a different facility. And I think at that time, California City was still very, very new. And even now, I would say, if you say California City, no one really knows that it exists. No one even knows that city exists. No, she didn't know. I don't think they told her. I don't know that they tell anybody where they're taking them until they take them there.
I found out about you guys through our friend Jake. And I had been going to California City to try to fight CoreCivic. CoreCivic is a private prison company. They run the ICE detention center out there. At the time, it had opened in August illegally. It had no permits. It had failed a fire inspection in July. It was open illegally. So we were down there trying to figure out why the fuck this was happening. It's also one of the private prisons that Gavin Newsom worked so hard to close, and it just reopened, and he said nothing about it. So when we were learning about what was going on in there, Jake brought your mom's case to our attention. She was one of two people to have been let out of CoreCivic.
I think there have been more since then, but I think she may have been the very first one.
She gets there. What happens next?
She gets there and it's like 2 a.m. or something at that time, and they couldn't process her or anyone else that they had brought in that day that night. So she said that they just put them in a cell and there was like no mattress, no blankets or anything. And my mom is 64, she has arthritis. She can't really get down and, sit on the floor. She can't squat or anything. And she had to sit on this like cold floor without blankets or anything. And there were other women with her that were just trying to lay down and sleep on the floor. And it was freezing. And, that facility actually, they keep it like below freezing temperatures at all times. And I think that's on purpose. It's just another method of torture.
Because they want them to self-deport.
They do want them to self-deport, but I also think they want to fill these beds as much as they can because they get paid per body. They're not considered people, they're considered just bodies, and every time they fill a bed, they make money.
Finally, they process her at what time?
The next morning. So this is now October 7th. That's when they processed her and they did the whole thing like fingerprints, they did retinal scans, which is interesting, did all her paperwork, gave her their uniform and like her name badge thing. The clothes they gave her didn't even fit her. The pants were like so large and they're like, we don't have anything else. And Yeah, and then they put her in her assigned cell.
So, was it still when did they figure out that it was the wrong name and switch it? At the facility?
They never switched it. They kept her under the name where that she has a deportation order under. You know, her real name she has always had since birth. That's the one that is has been going through like legal process to regularize her immigration status, you know, and she's not undocumented per se under that name because, you know, she's documented. They know where she is. She has, you know, the work permit, social security, and her case has been pending at USCIS. So yeah, they never changed that name. So when I was looking for her, I gave them her real name and I couldn't locate her, and that was very, very scary. So I had to ask her lawyer, and then her lawyer said, try this name, and that's how I was able to locate her.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So they just have her under two names, one fake, one from a scam. There's no clearing that up. And she goes in a cell. And what is the cell like?
The cell is very, very small, and I think it's just like concrete, like bunk beds. Like it's not even like actual, I don't even think it's actual like bed frames, but it's like concrete, I think built into the wall maybe, but I'm not about 100% like positive on that, but that's what I've seen in the reports. That's what I've heard. And there's like a mattress, which isn't even a mattress. It's like very, very thin, very uncomfortable. And there's a toilet with a sink on top.
For everybody?
Her cell had like a capacity of two people, so it's like one bunk bed.
And then the toilet's just in the middle of the room?
Yeah, I think it may have been on the side, but she said that everything was just open. So like it was, you know, they kind of had to find ways to shield themselves from other people seeing them when they use the toilet.
Because it's a fucking prison.
Yep.
So, what is she feeling and experiencing during that time? I know we talked about having her on as well, and I know just from speaking to her that a lot of it was extremely traumatizing, and it's hard for her to. It's interesting because I have said your mom is brilliant. She is, and if if we're not allowed to say this because it puts her in danger, I don't know. But she's brilliant. She has, like, a photographic memory. She's, like, so the ability for her to retain all of the information that she got while in there and relay it to you, to me, is remarkable. The way that she didn't have a pen and paper, she couldn't bring anything out, and she was clocking everything. She remembered everything.
She's brilliant that way. She's always been. She has like memories from when she was like 2 years old, and I'm like, I don't even think we're supposed to be able to remember things from when we're two, but here she is.
She knew spellings, she remembered it was like a full she could give me as a journalist a full rundown.
Yeah, she remembers all the names and faces and everything.
It's you know, they say, like, when you're on the witness stand, eyewitnesses are not, useful because they'll ID people or they'll remember things wrong or whatever, and she's just like a machine.
Yeah, her memory is remarkable.
So when is she talking to the other women this whole time? Like, what is she's trying to figure out what the people who've been in there longer are doing or what the future for her looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I think the initial feeling was like shock. And then at that time, she didn't have a roommate yet. So it was just her. And yeah, she made friends pretty quickly because, you know, that's how you survive in a place like that. And she also didn't have any money to make phone calls. And like they don't even allow you to make a free phone call. So there was actually another woman who she considers a good friend now that allowed her to use her funds to make that phone call to me and to my dad.
Because how is she supposed to let you guys know where she is to provide commissary?
Yeah, exactly.
My friend was in prison for almost a year ago for about a weekend, or she was there for 4 days or something, and she was facing federal charges, and she was not guilty, but she said that when she got in, you have to pay for a cup. And so she didn't have any money in there, obviously. So she didn't like someone had to lend her a cup.
I think that they were given whatever they were given. I don't think that they had cups or anything to use, but it was just like whenever it's mealtime, they had, utensils and like dishes and stuff that they would eat on and then they would take them away. So I don't think they had cups or anything outside of like meal times, which is in the main area.
Did she have a blanket?
They gave her a blanket by then, but no sweater or anything. And, like this is now like it's freezing, like it's frigid in there. Like I would be in there for like an hour or something to visit her, and I was always freezing. And I would even take sweaters. And if you see the employees there, they're all wearing jackets, but they're not provided any kind of, warm attire, just a thin blanket that doesn't even do the job.
The guards are wearing jackets?
Yep.
I'm speechless. So how long was she in for?
A little bit over 4 weeks.
When did you first go visit her?
It was the 9th. I flew in. I flew in on the 8th, and then I visited her on the 9th for the first time.
How was the visiting process?
From what I've heard, they've made it even more difficult now, but at that time, it was sort of kind of easy at the beginning. So you go in and you let them know who you're there to visit and give them your ID, your name, and like also like what kind of car you're driving, your license plate. Not sure why, but and then you wait until they call you in because the women are not allowed visitation when the men are getting their visitation. So they bring the men out together, and then once they put the men back into their section, that's when they bring all the women out together. I guess it could be for safety reasons. I don't know, but yeah, that's how long you wait, depending on what type, who's visiting. What type of visitation is happening.
How long you could just wait there until they said it was time?
Yeah, that first day, they said it was gonna be about an hour and a half, so my dad and I went to get something to eat, and then we went back and we were called in.
How long were you allowed to see her for?
It was an hour.
So what was that like walking in for the first time?
I don't even know, like, it was just, like, seeing my mom inside and, there's, like, that divide between you, like, whatever glass, plexiglass, I don't know, it's, like, very thick, and then, you use the little telephone receivers to talk to each other, so they're treated like very dangerous criminals, like, you can't even touch your family member, you can't hug them and, comfort them, which is something they need at that time more than at any other time, I think. So I couldn't do that, and when I saw my mom, she looked very, very tired, like, she looked like she already lost weight, she looked like she was feeling hopeless and, like, she was ready to give up, and she was actually shocked to see me, and what she kept saying was like, "Oh, I didn't think you were gonna come all this way," and I was like, "I of course I came. I'm your only child." And she was like, "I didn't want you to get involved in all of this. I don't want it to like interfere with your life or anything." But yeah, she was kind of shocked and surprised.
I feel like that's such classic mom behavior.
Mhm.
She'd be like, "No, don't." It's like when they tell you about having a major surgery like 2 days afterwards because they don't wanna bother you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how she is.
Wow. When people talk about these being detention centers, they are prisons. You are in prison. There's no need to have them behind glass to talk to you. There's no need to not allow them to, if it's really a detention center where you're just kind of hoping to deport people or whatever it is, why can't that you hug them? Why can't you bring them sweaters? Why can't you, if they're going to be deported, they need luggage. Like I want people to understand that this is not what you're being told it is. This is a prison. If they wanted to have the paperwork correctly, they would have it. If they wanted to be able to safely or whatever get people out of the country, they would facilitate that. But instead, I think at least these people are either they're stupid or they're getting off on being cruel in mass groups and dehumanizing. When you talked about bodies, dehumanizing them. I mean, the biggest feeling in a place like that is you're like, I'm not a person. I don't have any individual ability to get the things that I need personally. I don't think people are realizing, or they're not facing, some people, the reality of what is going on. 4 hours in that place is too much. 4 weeks? 4 weeks? And then for you to go there and not be able to comfort her. And I mean, I know you can, I don't wanna cause any more problems or trauma, or you feel an obligation to tell your story, possibly to the detriment of your own mental health. But like, you're just like hopeless. You walk in and you're like, what can I even do? She's behind there. I'm here. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, and yeah, it is a prison. They also have separate sections based on like how dangerous they are. So my mom was like the least, like lowest risk section. So, and then you have like the other sections where they're criminals, quote unquote. So that's also why I don't understand why we couldn't like see each other up close and, hug and comfort, because if she's so low risk and this whole section of hers is so low risk, like why are they being kept in the same way that the others are, because they consider all of them like criminals and thugs and vermin, like they don't consider them to be human. I don't think like that, like
Mhm.
I can't understand it at all.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
I mean that. So at what point was she able to see a doctor?
I think it took like 2 weeks ish.
Where was her medication?
They didn't give it to her for most of her medication. She didn't even get for a week. And every time I went in, I had to like basically raise hell and talk to anyone and everyone there that I could talk to. And my mom kept having to advocate for herself. So she would ask multiple times a day, and then she would be told, "We don't have anything." And the officer from the LA office had reassured her that she would get her medications at the facility. She provided them with her list. I provided them with the list of her medications. I spoke to them multiple times, including the nurse herself. But yeah, they didn't give her any medications. She has high blood pressure, she's pre-diabetic, hypothyroidism, she needs eye drops for lens implants. So all of that, and they didn't give her anything. And it got to the point where I visited her on I think the ninth day of her detention, and she looked like she was gonna have a stroke, or she was gonna die that day. I got there, she could barely talk, she was shaking, she was like having shortness of breath. She showed me her legs that were like severely, severely swollen, like 3 times, two and a half, 3 times her normal leg size. And they were also bruised because she said it hurt to walk. It was very painful to walk, and they were like bruising up as she walked. And so I had to be like, she's having a medical emergency, and you guys aren't doing anything about it. She had already asked to see the doctor. She put in like an emergency doctor's visit request that morning, and she said, when I visited her, this was about 3 p.m., that paper was still in that little box. They just left it there. And so I had to like really kind of yell at everybody to be like, take her and get her the help that she needs. And then the nurse took her and her blood pressure, lo and behold, it was 169 over 101, which is really high. It was very dangerous. And so the nurse monitored her for a few hours, gave her the medication that for that time only until it got a little bit better. And then again, the next day, no medication.
Her legs were swollen and bruised, and there was no reaction to that?
No. And, she had asked over and over. And like when I got there, she wasn't expecting me. I wasn't even I wasn't supposed to be there that day. And I'm so glad that I was. It was like a last minute thing. I told my cousin, hey, can you take me? I asked her, can you take me? And she was like, all right. And we went out there and then I saw her in the state and she was surprised to see me. And she said it was very difficult for her to even walk from her cell to visit me because she was having shortness of breath and her legs were painful. But yeah, she later on she called me that night and she said, you are a godsend today because if you weren't here, I think I might have died.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I think she had mentioned seeing other women with her who were also having medical emergencies. Yeah.
She told us, we've heard from other people, we've heard from independent media, people, women having miscarriages, and I know of people being denied dialysis, which is, very personal to me. I know one woman in her section that was denied dialysis for months and then deported, and then she passed away when she was after being deported. So, like, just deport her at that. If you don't want to give her dialysis, just deport her earlier and then she can at least get some medical help in her, native country. So I don't understand that. Cruelty is the point that they like doing this. This is torture and they really enjoy doing it.
So, what was the process throughout of trying to get her out?
I mean, it was difficult. The first day when I visited her, I saw the state she was in, and before I left, I said, "I'm going to get you out." And my mom was like, "I don't know, you're crazy," because no one was getting released at the time. So like you all became involved because I got the story to anyone, everyone who would listen. I sent maybe thousands of emails, DMs, and called people, right? I wrote, congressional reps and I wrote the senators, Adam Schiff's office, Alex Padilla's office, like anyone and everyone. And then I started reaching out to different orgs that were posting about it, like immigrant related situations. I reached out to everybody, like religious organizations and nonprofits and, content creators who were posting about these things that had large followings, like anyone who would listen, hoping that someone would answer. And then, one connection happened and then they had other connections. I wrote all the news networks and ABC pretty like kind of picked it up immediately. So the first day I visited my mom, that evening was the first ABC interview. So I kind of spread it around everywhere first of all, and then I got her new attorneys because I feel personally that her former attorney was taking advantage of her, and I think she might be doing that to like everyone because these are immigrants. A lot of them don't even speak English, and she's just taking advantage of them, and it's predatory behavior. So I got her different attorneys. There are like three women from three different organizations that are just brilliant, and they're very hard workers. And they actually took on the case pro bono. One of them was from public counsel. The other two, one of them has a private practice. She's a civil rights attorney, and the third one was the immigration attorney from South Asian Network. And they, along with the director of South Asian Network and other attorneys at public counsel, decided to take it on, and they filed a habeas petition and then a temporary restraining order, and that's how we ended up getting her out. Her habeas was filed on October 22nd. They woke her up in the middle of the night at like 1 a.m. and then took her out and said, your transport is waiting. And my mom was having a panic attack and she was shaking, and she said that they were like videotaping it. They were recording it for some reason. And she refused to go. She refused to sign the self deportation document. And she said, I'm not signing anything without my attorney. And they would put her back in and then take her back out. And they cut off her phone access so she couldn't let anyone know. Like, if you're going to deport her, at least just let her call her family, so that they know that this is happening. But yeah, they cut it off. And but then the same friend that allowed her to like call at the very beginning was the one who let her use her phone again and call me and let me know. And this is like 6 a.m. Like it was 6 a.m. my time, I think. So it's like 3 or 4 a.m. in California. So, and then I was like calling her attorneys who were like asleep at that time. And, I woke them up and I called and texted other people, independent media, like whoever had any connections. But yeah, they said they were going to take her. They finally did take her to LAX, even though she had refused. And once she got there, she said someone, possibly the chief of staff of the San Francisco field office for ICE, called the phone in the van that she was transported in. And this is at LAX while she's waiting pretty much like on the tarmac. And he asked her like, will you leave? And she refused. He asked her like 3 times, and then he was like, all right, take her back. And she was actually probably the only person that was taken back. And, they were being sneaky because they knew the habeas was filed and they knew the temporary restraining order was going to be filed the very next day. And in the meantime, they just tried to sneak in a deportation.
Did she have any money? Anything like they would have sent her to Bangladesh with nothing?
The only money was the cash that they gave her that came out of her commissary fund that where I had put in money. They just gave it to her in cash.
And she didn't have a cell phone?
No, nothing. They told her like she was like, "Can I call my family or my attorney?" And they were like, "You can call when you get to your country." But also we didn't know where they were going to take her because that false identity, that person was from Myanmar, and not Bangladesh.
So they would have just sent a 64-year-old woman to whatever country with cash, and that's it.
Yeah, barely any cash too. It wasn't like a very large amount left on her account, maybe like $100. But yeah, she might have gone to a third country that she's never been to, and potentially, if it's Myanmar, we know there's a lot of violence and it's not very safe, especially if you're a Rohingya. And if she went there and they thought she was a Rohingya, they would have been very violent towards her.
So they take her back, and I mean, Jesus Christ, like they're just playing psychological games with her.
That's what it seemed like. Like all the weird things they would do, like it just seemed like psychological games or just torture. Because right after that, she hadn't seen like her deportation officer at all that whole time. But that day is when they started sending an ICE officer to just intimidate and threaten her. And he would be like, sign the document. I'm going to come back on this day again. I'm going to deport you. And then, he would actually show up on that day and then threaten her again. And she was like, I'm not signing that. And I have a court date. And he would just blow it off like, yeah, I don't care about what the judge says. I don't care about the court date.
Imagine that's your job. And then you go home to your wife and they say, "Hi, honey, how was your day?" "Oh, I threatened an old woman." Not old, sorry, Masuma. I threatened a woman today, a older woman. So I feel good. How are you? How was your day?
Yeah, and like if that person has a mom who might be the same age or around the same age as my mom, and if they have kids, like, oh, I threatened someone just like your grandma today.
I know you mentioned they had one doctor and it took her about 2 weeks to see him. And if you've read any of my Substacks, listeners, you know that man is one of my hyperfixations. And so, can you talk about that experience of her going to the doctor?
Yeah, so the doctor saw her like the day before they tried to deport her. So he finally gave her medication and then they took it all away. When they gave her all the medication, I immediately had like a weird feeling because my mom was like, "Oh, they gave me all my medication." And I was like, "I don't know, something feels weird." Like I just it was just feeling like a bad feeling. But yeah, she said when she went in, he was more concerned about her immigration status than he was about her health. And when you're a doctor, you take an oath to do no harm, and you're supposed to only be treating that person, and like it doesn't matter what their immigration status is. And he was saying, you can get very good medical treatment when you go back to your country. And she was like, I don't want to go. This is my country. She's been here for almost 3 decades now. And she said, this is my country. My family's here. And I don't have anyone close to me there. I don't even know that country anymore because I
Mhm.
haven't been back there for almost 3 decades. And he was like, yeah, you can get all your medications there. They have good medical treatment, right? And she was like, no, they don't, because they actually don't.
To say to someone you're gonna get good medical care back in your home country is wild. You also said that there were officers, like, what were the guards like? I know we've gotten into a little bit, but you said that there were officers that were particularly cruel.
Yeah, so first of all, it's really weird because these are not ICE officers. They're not ICE employees. They're private core civic, like essentially they're private security. But then they have ranks for some reason. Like you have a sergeant and a chief and, whatever, captain. And I was like, why? They're not like ranking members of any kind of anything. It's just a private corporation. And yeah, a lot of them were extremely rude, extremely cruel, and they just didn't care. Like, and if I said something they didn't like, they would lash out. There were some that the rule is like they're supposed to tell you their name or show you their name badge, and they have badges. So, but a lot of them, especially the ones that were just mean, they had their badges like inside their pocket, or they were like flipped over so we couldn't see their names. Some were just very, very rude to my mom, and others for no reason, for asking for the basics like clean drinking water, for example.
I've seen a lot about what goes on in there just from being at the California City Council meetings where people use their time of calling and call into the meetings and talk about drinking water is dirty, there's flooding, you can't go outside. There's people have called in saying they have boils that are bleeding, that they don't get any medical attention for. Was she allowed outside? Did she go outside?
She said there is like a tiny space outside, but it's like unpaved. It's like gravel basically and like rocks. And they were given like Crocs, like shoes that are like Crocs. So whenever they would go out, all these things would get stuck in their shoes, and then they would have to like pick them out before they went back in. And there are like little thorn berries everywhere that would also get stuck in their shoes. So my mom like never really wanted to be outdoors because it was just more work to go outdoors, pick these things out of her shoes. And a lot of them would get not just stuck under, but like go in through the holes. And it was just more work for her. So she never really wanted to go outside, but it was a very tiny space. Plus, it's very, very hot out there. And it also gets very cold in the winter.
What are some of the egregious things that you want people to know in there? Like what I mean, you talked about a lot of it, but is there stuff that you would be like, this should be on the front page of the New York Times?
I mean, all of it, but mainly the human rights, the health part of it, because that's the very basics. We provide it to like anyone and everyone. Like it doesn't matter if you're documented, undocumented, you should be at least getting safe to eat food and not food that has dead rodents put inside it with like maggots. And my mom said she got bread with like bugs inside. Other people have said that they put a dead rodent in their food on for Christmas dinner. Like, how cruel is that? And so there is like maggots, and then clean drinking water was removed, and they were ordered to drink water from the sink above their toilet, which by the way is like brown and stinky, and it's just people get are getting sick from drinking that water because it's not safe to drink. And so that definitely should be on the front page, that they're eating maggots and rodent filled food and drinking water that's making them sick. Also, like when they get sick, there's no medical care for them. So, like, why are you making them sick and then not giving them medical care? And like, clean drinking water is not that much to ask for, you know? The medical part, yeah, there's like bleeding boils, miscarriages, falls, and people have broken their noses, and everyone's just given Tylenol for
Yeah.
everything. And yeah, so just all of that.
The miscarriages are horrendous.
Yeah, and I've heard I was in touch with my mom's cellmate's husband, and he said that one time he was talking to her and he heard these guards laughing about this woman who was pregnant, and she asked to sit down in a chair and they were like no. And then she had like a full on mental breakdown because obviously, yeah, and they were just laughing about it. Like one of them was telling the other about this happening, and they were laughing about it. And what kind of human beings are these? So, my mom got up because November 5th, the judge for the Eastern District of California ordered her release, immediate release. And they made that very difficult too. So by the time we were able to even get her out, it was like 9 p.m. because they gave us all sorts of excuses. Like, we don't know about any releases. And even if they were going to release her, they would take her out from the back and not we wouldn't know about it. And then they would take her to Bakersfield and process her out. And then it was like all these things. And then at one point they even threatened to call the police because we were not going to leave. And so we were like, call the police. We have this court order that you're violating. And so my mom's attorneys called the judges' chambers and like the AUSA. And so they made it very difficult. But once she was out, first thing was we were going to focus on her well being, her healing as much as possible from that trauma because she now has PTSD. And she immediately started getting nightmares. And she's, still now constantly anxious. She doesn't want to go out by herself because you never know. I wanted to focus on that, and I wanted to focus on her health, getting her to see her doctor and getting everything tested and checked out, and also feeding her. Every time I ate while she was in there, I felt guilty that she wasn't able to eat these things that we were eating. And so we took her to a couple restaurants that, because I was like, oh, she's really going to like this. And after that, they immediately wanted her to check in again 2 weeks after, which you can imagine how terrifying that was. And I think you may have been present for that one. It was like
Yeah, I
mid.
came to a few of them. I was saying, well, I came to some of the check-ins, but it was wonderful to see so many people there. So many people from church, so many people from like our group of activists. Like it was very important to a lot of people, which hopefully made her feel better.
Yeah, to have this community behind her and behind us has meant like everything. Like, I cannot express to you how grateful I am for that. And we really got to see that there are people that care, and there are more good people than evil people. And we really got to see that. And, we didn't know any of you. Like, I still haven't met many of these people that have really, really helped. I don't know them. And that check-in was the first time we met most of you. So, but before all of that, you were already getting her story out there. And yeah, so every time she has to check in now, she's terrified, but they're also requiring more frequent check-ins than before. In December, we met with California State Senator Sasha Renee Perez. I had been in touch with her office from the very beginning, and we asked to meet with her. And when we did meet with her, she was so moved by my mom and just seeing her. And I think her mom's probably around the same age, and I think her mom may even be an immigrant. And she was in tears, like she was just crying right in front of us. And my mom's check-in was the very next day, and she said, is it okay if I come with you, even though it's like 7 a.m.? And we were like, are you sure you want to come that early? And she was like, yeah. And she did that. She showed up the very next morning, and they even did not allow her to go in with my mom into that lobby. And so she was standing there in her like stilettos, like for like 45 minutes. And then finally, they did allow her into the lobby. And if it weren't for her, like talking to them over and over, she would have been there for many, many hours. So she's the one that rushed them. And they were like, well, you're supposed to make an appointment if you're going to come. And she was like, well, I'm accompanying one of my constituents, and she feels especially like strongly about my mom's situation because my mom is also a fire survivor. My parents, they live in Altadena and they had to evacuate last year for like 6 weeks. Even after the fires, my mom saw the fires through from her window. There's like scorched parts of their apartment building, and it's still like not like damaged. So they were able to go back in. And even when they did go back, there was like, ash everywhere. There's like, dangerous chemicals and metals in the air, and the water wasn't safe to use. So yeah, she was especially, very sensitive about that. And she said to us, hey, we've been trying to work on legislation relating to this. And I worked on the No Vigilantes one, the one with the name badge, and then the one with the mask, which were like being held up at court. But she said, I'm trying to work on legislation because this is not okay. This is unacceptable. But do you know of anyone else that would speak to us? Because no one wants to speak to us. No one wants to like, no one wants to
Mm-hmm.
tell their stories because they're afraid of the retaliation. They're afraid for their family members. They're afraid for themselves. And so no one wants to speak to us. Is it okay? Like, is it okay that you're speaking to us? And my mom was like, yeah, if it helps other people and it's for the greater good, absolutely. And so we were able to share. I mean, you already know we shared her story like very widely. And so that's when this whole SB 995
Mm-hmm.
came 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 into existence in January of this year. 2026 is when Sasha Perez told us about it, and she said, would it be okay if we used your name? So my mom was like, yeah. And because she was like, I think this would be more impactful, it would be very powerful. So she named it the Masuma Khan Justice Act. And that's how it came to existence. And then it has been amended several times since then because there are always challenges. Everyone's like, well, if you're putting this as discriminatory, and if you're like doing that, and it's going to get held up in court, and this is going to be too expensive. And but so far it's gone through all the committees it has gone through. It's been 7 now. It passed unanimously, so that's great. And we just have the assembly appropriations suspense file, and then that floor vote, and then it can go to the governor. And an urgency clause was put in so that it goes into effect immediately and not next January. So as soon as Governor Newsom signs it, crossing my fingers that it does get to him, it does pass through, and that it becomes law because these places need to be held accountable. And this bill is not just for detention facilities, but every involuntary residential facility, including juvie and psychiatric facilities where people are being held involuntarily. So it applies to everybody. It's for the greater good in general and not just undocumented or immigrants, so that they can at least meet these health and safety standards, the very basics. So the thing is, like, there are 3 different tiers. I think if for certain violations, it's like $25,000 fine per day per violation until they remedy it. And then I think the next tier is like $10,000, and then it's like 1,000, and depending on the severity, you have like the fire department or fire marshal and the health department who are supposed to be able to go and inspect, because they're not allowing anybody to inspect anything. Like, they're inspecting they're inspecting and investigating themselves. And that's just weird, including like, sexual assault on children They're like, all right, we'll take care of it, not the police. While that's going through, we did learn that there were talks of DHS buying these facilities so that, the supremacy clause goes into effect and the state laws and policies will not apply to them because this is now federal property. And I didn't think it was going to happen so quickly. And they just did it. They bought two core civic facilities. One of them is the Otay Mesa facility, where we know that detainees were putting notes inside like little shampoo bottles and throwing them over for people to like know what's going on. And California City is the other one. They just sold these two to DHS. And that tells you how, like, how cruel and just shady and sketchy these people are. Like, you're going to violate human rights. You don't even want to give them clean water. So you're just going to sell it to DHS, or like, what is going on there? How much money are you saving? Like, they're pocketing everything that they're not spending on them, including medical care, because they're allotted a certain amount by the government, which, by the way, comes out of our tax dollars. And I don't know why we're funding this from our tax dollars. But yeah, so the DHS bought it. But interesting part is that Core Civic is still operating it. That's already like, okay, they're still operating it. Why are they still operating it?
To close out, what can we do to help? What would the average person be able to do?
The most important thing right now is what we're seeing is that mainstream media is not covering it. One of the main things we should be trying to do is getting them to continue covering it, because, people just move on and they think it's not happening anymore, but it's still happening. And also just calling your senators, calling your congress people, and just calling your local leaders, demanding that they remedy the situation. And as far as the bill goes, like every time there's a committee hearing, Jake and all of us just tell people, hey, call to action. Like, can you call these state senators, or these assembly members? So that too, like, I know the last time we had the committee hearing for assembly judiciary, not a lot of people called in because, I mean, we didn't do a very good job at that call of action, because people have other things to do also. Whenever those types of call to action are put out there, I would really love it. I would hope that people would just take, I don't know, 30 seconds of their time to send an email and make a phone call saying, hey, we would like our assembly member, our senator, to pass this bill. And because pressure works, we are their constituents and we pay their salaries too. So they work for us. And so we should be able to demand that they do the right thing. And so I think more involvement from people, because we should be more involved in what happens in our country, in our society, and with our tax dollars. I would like for people to become a little more involved. Like, you just take like a minute out of your day to send an email. It literally doesn't take that long. You're all holding a supercomputer on the palm of your hands, like, all the time. And everyone knows you're scrolling anyway. So just send an email.
Yeah. I mean, thank you so much for coming on. And again, your mom is a genius. And yeah, I mean, what a weird fucking world we met in. But I'm grateful to know you and to know your mom, and to be able to put a face to all of this and to help in any way possible. And I met some cool people at your mom's check-in. The people from the church, it was kind of fascinating. They were evangelical, but like in a way that, I don't know, it was like a type of person I would never talk to otherwise, and who may never not spend a lot of time talking to trans people. So it was like really positive.
Yeah, the church people are like, they're like newer. Like, a few months ago during Ramadan, because my parents' like mosque burnt down in the fire, they started leasing or like renting a place from this church to like have prayers and stuff. And at that time, the church was doing like an immigration panel thing like every week. And that's how we became aware of it. And then they were like, hey, we would love to like come with you. And yeah, they just offered, and they're like, whenever you need us, we're there. And so that was really nice to see so many different types of people, like you said, come together, but also so many different faiths and like people who even are not religious at all, like myself. And
Mhm.
it like we are able to just come together as humans, and that's what matters. And but yeah, thank you for having me today. And like it sucks that this is when we met, but this is yeah, times like these is when you know who your real friends are, who you can really rely on. And, it's bittersweet. Like, I am upset about what happened to my mom and just the state of everything, but I am very, very grateful and happy to have met all of you and the friends that I made because of this whole ordeal.
Yeah, to be able to feel like you're not alone. Ugh. Well, thank you so much, and I'll keep everyone updated on here, but on the Instagram and Patreon, if you or Substack, if you guys are listening to this, I'll put more information too. A Thousand Natural Shocks, a Bad with Money podcast, is hosted by me, Gabe Dunn, and edited by me, Gabe Dunn. Theme song by Zach Sherwin and Sam Barbera. Love you guys. Bye.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.